Zelensky met Trump, and the world is talking about it, and we also would like to spread a little word about it, because it is the word of God, literally. I mean, Deus ex machina. GPT asked a question to dissect the meeting and come out with some sort of analysis. So we talk about it. Another topic, UK and Ukraine, a brilliant idea on how to use frozen Russian assets. And a Blitz interview with a great expert indeed, James Scher. We are discussing Trump's policy in particular and American foreign policy in general, how much of it comes from strategic planning and how much is a product of pure ignorance. Good afternoon, my name is Henry Keane and we are YouTube English, an English-speaking Ukrainian state media in constant persuasion to deliver hard truth in easy terms for you, for the whole free world, directly from Ukraine. An interesting ChatGPT analysis on the psychological aspects of the Zelensky-Trump-Vance meeting in for that Oval Office is spreading online, and we didn't do it, but it is quite close to our own observations, so we decided to publicize it anyway. So this analysis suggests that we have witnessed a masterclass in gaslighting, manipulation, and coercion from Trump and his entourage. Let's look into the key points of that. First, blaming the victim for their own situation, Trump directly tells Zelensky, you allowed yourself to end up in a very bad situation, and this is a classic abuser's tactic, blaming the victim for their suffering. According to this logic, Ukraine itself is responsible for being occupied and for Russia killing its people. 2. Pressure and forced gratitude. Vance demands the Zelenskys that saying thank you. This is a highly toxic tactic, forcing the victim to express gratitude for aid they cannot refuse, only to later accuse them of ingratitude when they attempt to assert their rights. 3. Manipulation of the concept of peace. Trump claims that Zelensky is not ready for peace, but what he actually means is Ukraine's capitulation. This is a typical manipulation where the concept of a just peace is replaced with surrender to the aggressor. 4. Denying the reality of war. Trump repeatedly states that Zelensky has no cards to play and that without us, you have nothing. This is yet another abuser's tactic, undermining the victim's efforts and convincing them that they are powerless without the so-called savior. 5. Devaluing war casualties. If you are offered a ceasefire, you must accept it so that bullets stop flying and your people stop dying. End of quote. Trump says that. However, he just ignores the fact that a ceasefire without any guarantees would simply allow Russia to regroup and strike again, even harder. 6. Establishing dominance. Trump constantly interrupts Zelensky, refusing to let him speak. No, you have already said enough, says Trump, or you are in no position to tell us what to do. This is a deliberate psychological pressure tactic aimed at establishing a hierarchy where Zelensky is subordinate. 7. Forced capitulation disguised as diplomacy. Vance claims that the path to peace lies through diplomacy. This is a classic manipulation tactic where diplomacy is used as a smokescreen for allowing the aggressor to continue their actions unchallenged. 8. Protection and distortion of meaning. Trump states, you are playing with the lives of millions of people. In reality, he is the one doing exactly that, shifting the blame onto Zelensky. 9. Creating the illusion that Ukraine is indebted to America, like the US does help Ukraine. It is true, but when this aid is framed as you must obey us or you will receive nothing, it ceases to be a partnership and turns into financial and military coercion. 10. Undermining Ukraine's resistance. Trump asserts, without our weapons, this war would have ended in 2 weeks. This is an attempt to completely erase Ukraine's achievements, portraying it as entirely dependent on the United States, which is not true. And a conclusion. Trump and his team deployed a full arsenal of abusive tactics: gaslighting, victim blaming, forced gratitude, manipulation of peace and diplomacy. This was not a negotiation. It was an attempt to coerce Zelensky into accepting terms that benefit the US but are deadly for Ukraine. You know what gaslighting is, right? It is a form of psychological manipulation where the abuser tries to make the victim doubt their perception, memory, or even sanity. It is often done by undermining the victim's feelings, distorting facts, shifting a blame, or denying an objective reality. Gaslighting is distorting facts. You are overreacting or you're imagining things. Remember Trump calling Zelensky a dictator?
Did I say that? President Trump on calling Zelensky a dictator.
Gaslighting is abusively denying someone's ability to properly see things and comprehend the objective reality in any other way the abuser does.
What you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening. President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Gaslighting is invalidating your emotions. You're too sensitive, or even, that's your problem, not mine.
That is not our problem, Donald Trump on climate change.
Gaslighting is shifting the blame. If you hadn't acted that way, I wouldn't have to do things that I'm doing to you now.
You allowed yourself to end up in a very bad situation. President Trump during a meeting with President Zelensky in the Oval Office.
And in the end, while violating the social norms and laws, a morbid narcissist and a gaslighter would always allow themselves to be above any law.
He who saves his country does not violate any law. President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
I wonder if it works the other way around. He who violates any law saves the country. Well, Michael McFaul, political analyst, diplomat professor at Stanford University, former US ambassador to Russia, a man who surely knows what he's talking about, comments on Zelensky's meeting with Trump and the assumption that Zelensky has not thanked America enough. Well, let's see what Mr. McFaul has to say. The Trump team told Ukraine that it should give territory to Russia. Should Zelensky thank them for that? Trump told Ukraine that it cannot join NATO. Should Zelensky thank them for that? Trump said that if there is an international peacekeeping force in Ukraine, US soldiers will not participate in it. Should Zelensky thank them for that? The Trump team announced that it plans to reduce the number of US troops in Europe. This is a huge gift to Putin. Should Zelensky thank them for this? US-Russia relations were officially restored without any preconditions during a meeting between Secretary of State Rubio and Foreign Minister Lavrov in Saudi Arabia. Trump officials hinted at a possible easing of sanctions even against Russia. Trump himself invited Russia to rejoin the G7. Should Zelensky thank them for that? The US voted no on a UN resolution condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Thus, Trump broke unity with America's democratic allies and effectively supported Russia, Belarus, North Korea, and other dictatorships. Should Zelensky thank them for that? And what about the aid for which Vance demanded gratitude from Zelensky? Vance himself voted against this very aid. The Republican Party held it up for 6 months. Trump claimed that stupid Biden eventually provided it. So what exactly does Zelensky have to thank Trump and Vance for? Congress? Yes. American taxpayers? Oh yes. But Trump has done nothing for Ukraine so far. All his team does is hand out gifts to Putin, and it is from the Russian dictator that they should be demanding gratitude. And you know what? America agrees to that.
Going downhill for Vice President J.D. Vance and his family following yesterday's fiasco there in the Oval Office with Ukrainian President Zelensky. There's some new video now we have showing the vice president being greeted by protesters holding anti-Vance, pro-Ukraine signs as he makes his way there to Vermont for a ski resort vacation. More protesters met the Vance family outside of the resort.
Well, what can I add here? Whether it is human or artificial intelligence analysis or what happened whether in America or Europe, it seems for all voices to unite in one. The bare fact is a president indeed disrespected America in the Oval Office. and it wasn't Zelensky. The United Kingdom signed an agreement with Kyiv on March 1st to provide Ukraine with a loan worth £2.26 billion, which is about $3 billion, backed by, ta-da, frozen Russian assets. I mean, ain't that a brilliant idea? Some say it is against the law to give this Russian money to Ukraine. Like, it is okay for Russia to invade a sovereign country, to rape, to murder, burn, abduct Ukrainian children. Just don't touch invaders' money. It is against the law. Well, not anymore, and not in England. The loan, which is part of the G7 Extraordinary Revenue Acceleration ERA credit initiative, was signed amid President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to London to meet with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
The United Kingdom continues to stand in defence of Ukraine. Today's agreement, which contributes to strengthening Ukraine's defence capabilities, confirms this. Ukraine's Finance Minister Serhiy Marchenko.
The loan will go towards purchasing defense equipment according to Ukraine's needs, the Finance Ministry says. In October 2024, G7 countries came to an agreement that pledged to provide Ukraine with almost $50 billion in loan. The United States will contribute the bulk of the loan with $20 billion in assistance, and the US is closely followed by European Union countries, including France, Germany, and Italy, with a combined $19.4 billion. The remaining approximately $10 billion will be divided up, with Canada providing $3.7 billion, Japan providing $3.07 billion, and the UK providing almost $3 billion in loan funding. While Western countries have frozen $300 billion in Russian assets, they can so far only access the annual income generated by these funds, approximately $3.2 billion. These profits will back the $50 billion loan to Kyiv, while the vast majority of the assets are frozen in European countries. In January, Zelensky and Starmer signed a 100-year partnership agreement during their meeting in Kyiv on January 16th. The wide-ranging deal encompasses cooperation in military, energy, scientific, cultural, economic, and other sectors. Early in the day, Starmer, in line with European allies, reaffirmed his country's support for Ukraine and Zelensky.
We stand with Ukraine for as long as it may take. Ukraine has a full backing across the United Kingdom. Keir Starmer, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Well, what can I add here? Thank you so very much, Prime Minister Starmer and Britain. This is why exactly you're great. James Sher, Senior Fellow of the International Center for Defense and Security, Tallinn. Hello, Mr. Sher. My pleasure.
Hello, and thanks for having me back.
Yeah, right. Well, first question. With all this mayhem Trump caused, we can discuss that later on, but if I would say cautiously optimistic that Europe is awaking, would you agree with me?
I'm a pessimist by nature, but
Okay.
I am. I am cautiously optimistic that Europe is awakening, but that's an average of two things. I think a mental revolution is well underway in Europe. When it comes to the United States, basically speaking, across the board, the trust has gone.
Right, right.
The whole Atlantic Alliance is held together by trust. Everything is so deeply integrated that you can't run this elaborate machine if at any moment the principal party can throw a temper tantrum and say, no, I'm not doing that. So all this is very unnerving. We even have people who are very sober, asking questions, writing news articles, asking whether the United States has become an enemy of the West. So in this sense, there's been a major change. There's been a major change in Germany. Merz wants to talk to France and Britain about nuclear sharing and a joint nuclear arrangement. More and more military people are talking about the necessity of thinking about a future war in the absence of the United States. So these are radical changes. That's where I can be at one level optimistic about Europe. But the other level is that all the bureaucratic habits, all the divisions, all the practical difficulties, they're still there. And if you ask me if I see signs that they're really being addressed as they ought to, no. One interesting fact for your audience. In 1970, the UK devoted 5.5% of its GDP to defense expenditure.
Right.
And, now, we have the capacity to do this. Trump says you should be spending 5%, we have the capacity. Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, is now complimenting himself because he has prevailed against opposition in his own cabinet to raise defense spending from 2.2 to 2.5%. Well, this will not do. So in practical terms, I have less to be optimistic about. I have become more optimistic. I hope you're going to ask me about it.
Right.
About where things are going between the United States and Ukraine.
Exactly. I mean, this was my next question. Right.
Yeah, my views were less black than they were. I mean, in my business, you have to learn to see different shades of black and tell the differences between them, and I think I'm good at that. Ukraine is not going to get a security guarantee from the United States. Let's understand that.
Yeah.
But that's not the worst thing in the world. Yeah, that's not the worst thing in the world. Donald Trump doesn't understand security guarantees. What he understands are interests. If I read the now considerably revised minerals agreement correctly, the United States is now acquiring a powerful, tangible asset in Ukraine. That gives it a powerful interest in Ukraine's viability and its safe control of those assets and the territory around those assets.
Right.
No surprise, Donald Trump recently is talking about Ukraine reclaiming some territory it lost. This is more powerful than a security guarantee.
Absolutely.
A security guarantee is a general obligation. Trump doesn't want general obligations. But if he has an interest, we can be modestly hopeful that he will act on it. So you have to, as with Russia, you have to learn to think how he does in order to interpret things properly. So these latest developments are not at all bad. Leaving aside everything that is bad. And the news on the ground militarily in Ukraine, which I've always thought is better than most people say, has improved in the last couple of days. Well, that's another issue.
It is, absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
Well, my question was the like everyone is I hear voices that say, "Oh my God, without a security guarantees." But what are these security guarantees? It's absolutely intangible asset which I don't understand that. But I also understand a pragmatic interest, maybe not that favorable for both, equally favorable for both parties. But the minerals deal, I mean, it's a fair thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but look, when Poland was overrun by the German army and the Red Army in 3 weeks, it had a treaty of alliance with France and the United Kingdom.
Yeah, where is that? Yeah.
Did that save Poland? No. So what did the Budapest Memorandum do for Ukraine?
Nothing.
Created a lot of illusions for a number of years. So Ukrainians should have good reason to be skeptical about the value of guarantees. You need something which is backed up by clear, hard and fast, tangible interests.
Great.
And that's the relationship that Ukraine needs to pursue with the United States, rather than asking for things they don't understand, they don't think are important, and that they find very irritating.
Mr. Chat, do you
And by the way, my compliments again to President Zelensky, because I think he finally got the measure of Donald Trump.
Yeah, I'm with you.
President Zelensky was the first leader, and of Ukraine, a country at war, who stood up to him and said, "No, he was given a thoroughly unacceptable agreement to sign. It's what Americans call the sucker's contract. And he said, and his demand was sign it today. He said, no, I will not sign that. Well, that requires real bravery, but he did this in a very mature, very composed, very calm manner,
Right.
which has not always been the case with him because he sometimes becomes very emotional. Both he and Donald Trump are very thin-skinned people. This is very bad for a relationship. He has to know his ground and stand his ground, and that's what he did. And
I
it
also
helped to
have
make
that
an
feeling.
impression.
Exactly. Yeah, it is great. It is great because I mean, you just put all the emotions aside, looking at the goal that we want to reach, and he was understanding that Trump is the only game in town, and was calmly saying that I am not a dictator, and Mr. Trump will understand it in time. And here we go. Mr. Trump says, "Look, did I say that? No, I don't remember that anymore."
Exactly. Exactly. Right. The intelligent Trump supporters in the States say something, and I'm not saying I hope I'm intelligent. I'm not saying I'm a Trump supporter, but I'm not. The intelligent Trump supporters say something that I agree with. You have to take Trump seriously, but you shouldn't take him literally.
Exactly.
Don't rise and react to everything he says, no matter how outrageous he is. I assure you, if you upset this man, he'll say, I don't care if Ukraine gets wiped off the map. That doesn't mean anything to me. That doesn't mean that's what he really,
but it's,
where
you know,
he really is.
Well, the people and officials in the different countries, I mean, I was in Munich at Munich Security Conference. I'm working with my colleagues from Washington Post, from New York Post, from Time Mag, and everyone. We were talking, and we heard the J.D. Vance speech when we were listening to it. We were writing some script. I mean, journalists are cynical bastards in nature. It's an occupational hazard for us. And everyone was stunned. We were literally looking like this. Heads started to pop up like, what's going on? And this was the very moment that Europe, awake from a deep sleep, I don't know, from a state of like, we have to discuss things. It's nothing to discuss here. It's the wolf standing at our door, and something is being done. That's at least what these actions by Europe is taken now are caused by Trump. Am I right?
Well, here comes the question. How much of this can be remedied over time? How much of what we see, which we rightly find, so absolutely shocking and unacceptable, how much of it is a product of ignorance?
A very good question.
Simple ideological prejudice. How much of it can be unlearned? The problem with, you see, the challenge with Donald Trump is this. He is a man with a completely untutored mind who believes he understands everything.
Right.
And apart from that, he has more power than anybody else in the world. Well, that's a very difficult challenge. But as I think we've even seen in the past few days with regard to Ukraine, he is capable of learning. J.D. Vance is probably capable of learning.
Right.
Any opportunity to improve their knowledge, give them a broader perspective, introduce other colors on the palette.
Right.
It has to be taken, whilst at the same time, all of us have to learn to depend on ourselves and to make the sacrifices in order to be able to depend on ourselves successfully. And that will be respected in the United States.
Great. Well, Mr. Shah, again, an exquisite pleasure. You're great experts, and you're taking, I'm also, was maybe overreacting, over emotional here, but it's hard to not doing that when Russian missile just 2 weeks ago obliterated literally our office. So I know we're living in the times of war. Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, well,
sorry about
you're
your
getting used to things like that, even. But again, thank you so very much for your expertise and for your time. I hope we can do it again sometime later on.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. All the best to you and God bless.
Thank you. All the
Bye-bye.
best. Goodbye.
І слава Україні.
Героям слава.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was it for tonight and for this intense and insane, in many ways, to put it mildly, week. My name is Henry Keane, and we are UATV English, an English-speaking Ukrainian state media in a constant persuasion to deliver hard truth in easy terms for the whole free world, directly from Ukraine. Please like, share, and comment. Your voice matters, as it in turn helps Ukrainian voice to be heard globally. Stay safe, and hope to see you next week.